to decide to put me first and decide to live only in alignment with how I want my life to be. Friend, here's something I don't know if you know. While the podcast was a thought of mine for a long time, thinking of me absolutely could not be doing this without our very own Wizard of Oz, Kyle, at Goodnight Podcasting Solutions. Kyle's turnaround time, dedication and level of service means that I never have to second guess or worry about the level of support in getting our messaging out to you. If you're curious as to starting your own podcast or just want to see how it might spread your message, reach out to Kyle at kylegoodnight.com or check our show notes. I mean it when I say that we couldn't be doing this without him. Hello, welcome to the Thinking of Me podcast. Happy Thoughtful Tuesday, where this week we have some thoughts around alignment. And my friend, I have one question for you this week, and that is, can you recognize when you're out of alignment? Now, alignment is something which I've been aware of over the last number of years in having a word, and that's what you call it. Sometimes it's feeling out of funk, sometimes it's feeling stuck, out of sync, or just like you're having a friction with one or many aspects of your life. And my story and my thoughts today are around something that came up with one of my mentors only today, where I was asked the question of a time in life when I was completely out of sync with myself and a little bit in the pit as such, a little bit in the clouds as I call it, of not knowing what was meant to be next, and just definitely knowing that life was not feeling like my own. And that was in 2020 when I was in Zante. And if you haven't listened back to last week's episode with Keris, we caught up on all things Zante days and personal journeys, transformation in the fitness and weight loss world. And it was really nice to see her growth and chat about both of our respective journeys ever since the days of drinking from one end of the season to the other. And I mention that because, as I say, for me it was 2020. It was my second and a half season as such. 2020 wasn't really a season. We all went out in July when the borders opened, and I already had a job lined up. I was at home teaching the year before that, the school year before that. The story goes back a bit deeper, but we'll start there with, I went out for the mini season as such. I went out when I knew my friends were going out, and I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I could not tell you what I was on the scales because I hadn't weighed myself in so long. But I know by the time I stepped on the scales again a few months later, I was 196 pounds. So I'm pretty sure August 2020, I had to have been at least 210 pounds easily. And that was one aspect of life I didn't recognise. The other thing was I was sick. My health was not great. It wasn't COVID and it wasn't Zante flu, but I was sick, and I was getting sick more and more that year and the year beforehand with little things, like minor things that I never used to get sick with. Like I never used to get like common cold, or I wasn't getting as many sore throats or headaches or that kind of thing anymore. But yet here I was in bed, not able to move nearly. And I couldn't think straight. I couldn't write creatively like the way I liked to. And I noticed that my journals were kind of going in a circle of complaining all the time, or seeing the same pattern with boys, or just feeling a little bit isolated and not really knowing why I was feeling so isolated from my friend groups. And there was an evening where, like that, I was maybe day 2 or day 3, quite sick, and I was completely in the bed, like a hermit as such, glued to Netflix on the phone. I think I was watching Gilmore Girls or something at the time. And something just clicked, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I actually have that written in my journal, where it was like, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. It's like I have nothing to my name. I was lying in a bed with a single bed sheet, a white bed sheet, one pillow on this hard bed in Greece, in the heat, in August, knowing I had a job for me at home if I wanted it, but yet not knowing what kind of future I was heading into in deciding to accept my career at the time and basically take some responsibility for myself. which I hadn't done and hadn't been doing for a few years. And that, as I say, was a story that, and a moment that came up today with my mentor in reflecting on, well, how do you embody your thriving self? And what does it look like now away from that point and at the top of the mountain as such? And friend, if you're not familiar with the journey of going from where you are right now or where you were to where you want to be, it's as simple as, what does life look like in a perfect day? What does life look like when you're living fully as you? And at the time, I knew what was happening in life just wasn't me. It didn't add up. It didn't sum up to all of who Lauren is and was. And I was so out of sync of even who I wanted to be. Like that question of, what did I want to do really? Where did I want to live? All I knew at the time was, well, if I can't travel because it was COVID, and if I can't work in the tourism industry because it's so uncertain at the time, well, then I might as well pay Dublin rent. And that was why I ended up moving into where I lived for the last 4 years, and just recently have uprooted out of again, in aligning to my current, present, and my new future of being able to have a bit more freedom. So I asked you, what does it mean for you to be in alignment? And what are the things, what are the habits, what are the parts of you that make you feel true to you? I shared some of the story there of my own pain, my own point of questioning what's happening, what's going on, to share that now, even as things have changed and are changing around me and evolving as Thinking of Me grows and our messaging gets deeper and wider, at the same time, that there is some steps, there is a system, a habit structure where I come back to ask myself, is this in tune with me? And one of those things is when it comes to movement and moving my body in some way, shape or form, whether that's just putting on the runners and going out for a little bit of a walk to kind of move my body, or picking out the boxing gloves and going to the boxing bag, or whatever it is that makes you feel like you a little bit in your body. Maybe it's some kind of sexual activity. Maybe it's spending some time with yourself intimately, or with a partner intimately, in actually just connecting back to your body. The other thing for me that reminds me of kind of who I am and what I'm about is focusing on something that I can learn, even if that's only 10-15 minutes of listening to a podcast. And friend, if that's you right now, there's your 10-15 minutes ticked off for today. Or reading a chapter or two from a book, or attending a class, learning a new skill, whatever it is, checking in with my coach or my mentors and seeing what's new there. Focusing on one thing for even 15-20 minutes that I know is going to move me forward in the direction that I want to. Maybe it's something to do with work sometimes. Signing up to attend a CPD day, a continual professional development day, or whatever it might be. And another step that I take, and that is so important for me, and I've learned the long way and the hard way at times, is connection, and meaningful connection. Who is your tribe? Who is your person if you don't have a tribe? Who bigs you up? Who supports you? Who calls you out, maybe even in an uncomfortable action kind of a way, or to say, hey, this is or isn't you, but in a loving way that's not trying to cut a cord with an ultimatum, or isn't trying to, shoot you at dawn kind of a thing, just because you've made a mistake or you're a little bit off track. Who brings you back? And for me, my friendships, even though I definitely live like the quote of, some friends are like stars, you might not see them often, but they're always there. I'm that friend. I'm that friend that isn't necessarily always there, but is there if and when I'm needed. And when I'm there, it is a a true connection, and it is not just a transaction. And my friends know who they are, and the connections that I value, particularly on this new journey and in growing, as I say, thinking of me and the entrepreneurship world and so on and so forth, who are the people that you can meet and chat with. And if you don't have a tribe or you don't have that person, where can you get around someone like-minded that is there to support you and not pull you back? And as I say, those steps, those things for me, keep me in alignment, keep me in focus of myself and in connection with myself and in moving and embodying as myself. Because, friend, the thing is whatever happens next in life, I can't see the future, but whatever happens next is going to be challenging at times. That's just a fact. There's going to be more hard times. There's going to be things that are going to disappoint me. I know that. But I'm ready to be able to handle that so that it doesn't mean that I have to circle back, shrink, go into an overthinking shell, or hide away with my head in the sand, quite literally, because of the reality that's happening around me. I know that the habits, the people, and the self-reflection that it takes to decide to put me first and decide to live only in alignment with how I want my life to be is how I can enjoy the good times. And I don't want to misquote, but Tommy Tiernan, has a great joke around, you wouldn't have called the good times if it was the waiting for the bad times, when he talks about the Celtic Tiger years. And for anyone who's outside of Ireland, that was essentially the boom days, say before the crash, 2008 times, and Ireland never really actually got back on its feet from an economic side of things. But look, I'm not an economist, I'm a home economist, but I don't really do the economics world. But I do know that there's a truth there in what he says about that, because you can't just be waiting for the next bad thing to happen. You can't just hide away and forget about life and let opportunities pass up because you don't feel ready, or because you're feeling out of funk, or you're in a changed state and you're not certain about what's going to look like or when it's going to settle again. You get to choose. You get to choose the pieces of the puzzle that make up you. You get to choose the stones of the path in front of you, of one step, one day, one piece at a time, in living in alignment with who you are, the future you're creating, and being present enough to enjoy the moment, even before it's figured all out. I've made some big changes in my life, and as I say, I've shared just kind of one of those times that I just felt so out of whack and so not like me. And to know the person I am now, and the connections I've made, and the people I've helped, and the things I've done in my career and am doing in my business now, and have yet to still do and get to still do, just by, in that moment, having that one decision to say enough is enough. And it, as I say, it's in my journal. Enough is enough. This is it. This is where we make a change before I'm ready. And from there, I haven't looked back. I've questioned, I've doubted, I've, nearly, not regretted. I've wondered about what would have been if I hadn't have done that. Could I live, quote unquote, normal, like other people my age, and not have so much responsibility? And that was a thought I caught earlier on in the car. It's like, you don't get to ignore the things you're called to do. You don't get to shy away from responsibility. And I'll close on this, friend, because this is a bit of a long one this week. In one final share, my first job was in a delicatessen, in a garage in the small town where I'm from in Castlepollard. And I remember one of the days where I took out the magazine and I sat down at the counter at the till, at the cashier till, and thought I could just be like what you see in the soap operas and, you know, on the different television programs, where I could just like sit, flick through the magazine, and as people come in, I'd just, you know, pay for their fuel, and if I was needed over in the deli, I'd go over there and whatever else. And my manager at the time, and the owner of the shop, and I won't share her name, but anyone local might remember them. This is circa 2000 and I want to say 11. I was 15, so yeah, maybe 2010, 2011 when I had my first job. And she said at the time, a day's work is never done. If you get everything done in the day, you know, you haven't done your day, essentially. A day's work is never done. And I remember being a little bit resentful. I remember being a bit resentful that, well, how come I can't just sit back and wait for the next piece of work to come along? And I remember being resentful in college with the amount of work we had to do compared to other colleges and people doing other degrees than the degree I was doing. I remember for the first time being resentful of my family and some of the things I had to grow up with and learn at a young age, some lessons. And the first time I became resentful of that, and well, why me? Why should I have had to have gone through that and other people didn't? I didn't get to choose any of those things, but I do get to choose and acknowledge that I'm built for more, and there's more asked of me than settling for a reality of lying in bed, sick, fat, disconnected from friends, not having a future vision, not working, not actually working. Maybe earning some money, but not actually working, not actually putting myself to a task that I know I can focus on, do, and bring about a change for someone or something else that's outside of myself. I don't get to choose the things that are asked of me in this life and the challenges that are put in front of me, but I do get to choose how I react to them, and I do get to make that meaningful for myself, for someone else, and easier because I've been asked to be strong. And the fun in that, my friend listening, is when you rise to that and you, as I say, embody, focus, and connect to that aligned life that is bigger, greater, and more fun than maybe how things are right now or have been in the past. And you remember that you can and deserve and are called for bigger, better, aligned living, not just waiting, not just wondering. The whole world looks different. And I'll leave on that note of what can you do to be more in line with who you are and who you're meant to be. Our Masters of Thriving event is happening in the Mullingar Park Hotel on the 29th of March in 2 weeks' time. Anyone who's in Ireland or in any way close by would be amazing if you wanted to come along. You can go to thinkofmecoaching.com/masters to register. And if any thoughts come up, please do reach out. Please do let me know. I really love to hear them. Talk soon, friend. Have a good week.